He passed out in the middle of a soundproof studio before the last recording was done. The ventilator was taken off a few days later. His heart stopped, and a big part of rock history came to an end. Ace Frehley, the man who played Kiss's smoky guitar, died in an unexpected fashion, which was not what the world thought of him. What happened in the last few days wasn't just an accident, and now everything has finally come to light. Ace died at Morristown Hospital in New Jersey after almost 3 weeks of intensive care. He had passed out in his own studio earlier that day after falling several times. He was diagnosed with a brain hemorrhage and loss of consciousness when he was hospitalized. He had to use a breathing machine right away. The doctors said from the first day that the damage was significant and that the outlook was not favorable. It wasn't a quick reaction to cancel the whole tour in early October. It was based on health problems that had been going on for a while. During the most recent rehearsals, Ace often lost focus, moved slowly, and had reactions that were noticeably slow. A sound technician on the tour team said, "We were always nervous when Ace stepped on stage to get ready for a music check." He had changed since a few months back. The last fall happened when Ace was getting ready to record a solo for a song that wasn't out yet in the Origins Volume 3 project. He lost his equilibrium as soon as he got up from the recording chair, struck his head on the edge of the equipment table, and fell to the ground. An aide found him passed out and breathing weakly. That same day, he slipped again in the studio's restroom, where he had been lifted up and wasn't totally better yet. 2 accidents in a row within a few hours rendered the situation worse than first thought. The decision to cancel all performances on October 6 was made when the medical report said that the cerebral hemorrhage could not be repaired with surgery. The family agreed to keep the person alive for a short while with a ventilator while they watched how their brain responded. The condition did not get better in the next 10 days. The device kept breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure at very low levels. There were no more nerve responses at all. Ace's family asked to terminate all supportive care on October 16, after more than a month of treatment. The last meeting with the neurologist who was in charge of his care at the hospital led to the decision. At 1742, the gadget showed that the brain had stopped working completely and that breathing had started on its own. The death certificate was finished in less than 3 hours. It said that the person died from a cerebral hemorrhage caused by closed head trauma that did not respond to resuscitation treatment. On the night of September 25, all of the equipment in the studio where the accident happened was shut off for a technical inspection. The results of the following work environment assessment showed that there were no problems with the physical space. Still, internal investigation showed that Ace hadn't eaten in about 24 hours before the collapse and had taken sleeping medications twice that day to soothe his anxieties. A former boss who worked with Ace in the last year of his life stated he was more weary than normal. He was forgetful, repeated himself, and lost track of time a lot in the last few weeks. This source says that Ace turned down a neurological screening test in early September, saying it was merely a short bout of tiredness. Ace had intended to go to the Kennedy Center honors ceremony later that year before he fell. The person in charge of the event said that he had been invited in August and that he had agreed to go as long as he finished recording by October. This was also the first time since 2014 that he has said in public that he would perform with the other members of Kiss on an official stage. Still, the plan couldn't be put into action. A band member who was in charge of the backline for the 2025 tour said that Ace knew his body was becoming worse, but he still wanted to finish the last album so that everything would end the way it had started. No cuts, and no additional players. Ace had been living in tension for decades between his love of creativity and the restrictions of the musical world before his health fell apart. The initial cracks didn't come from sickness, they came from inside Kiss, where celebrity and power clashed every day. Unresolved fault lines. The fight inside Kiss started while the band was at its most popular. Ace performed the lead guitar, but he didn't have any say over the money or the brand. He was seen as an outcast among the gang, but being fully there for projects and images. Ace didn't like how Paul and Gene were running the group from the start. He was regularly kept out of the music selection and writing process during several song talks. The Psycho Circus CD is a good illustration of this. Ace only had one official song, yet he was on the cover of the album and on the whole tour. This went on for a long period, and it was the first time he left the band. The issue didn't go away after he left the group. The other members of Kiss kept going without Ace, adopting the spaceman picture he made for his replacement. Ace adamantly opposed replacing staff but maintaining the brand made by others. He said in an interview in 2011 that he would never let someone exploit his identity without modifying anything. That's not showing respect. That's taking advantage of someone. Ace didn't get back together with the gang on a lot of significant occasions, even when he was requested. People said no to the invitations since they weren't clear about who would do what. One of his demands was the right to manage his own guitar parts if he went back on stage, but the people who put on big events didn't agree. Many people felt that when Kiss announced a farewell tour in 2023 without Ace, it was the end of any hope of a reunion. During that period, Ace's fight with Gene got increasingly well known. Ace said many times that he didn't like being termed lazy or unprofessional in Gene's interviews. In a 2019 interview, Ace stated, "I wouldn't have had a series of solo albums and solo tours for the past 20 years. Another part of the discord stemmed from musical direction. While Ace wanted to maintain the original rock style, the group had shifted to a more commercial direction in the late 70s. The arrangement, image choices and marketing strategy no longer fit his musical philosophy." Ace once said, "They wanted Kiss to be a product. I wanted it to be a band." In his personal life, Ace also limited communication with former members, except for rare occasions related to memorials or anniversary programs. For many years, he completely separated himself from the group's management, coordination, and scheduling. When asked about the possibility of collaborating again in the future, he always answered simply, "Not when everything is the same." That separation was not just about work. Mentally, Ace always felt like the only one not in the executive system, but being one of the four founders. He once compared himself to a contributor to the house, but not the one with the keys. The estrangement between him and the rest of the group was not healed until the end of his life. The separation in work and human relationships was a point that lasted throughout his career. But while the external connections gradually broke down internally, Ace also faced something even heavier, himself. Internal war. Ace started using alcohol as a teenager. This habit later developed into an addiction that lasted for many years. Alcohol, sedatives, and stimulants were used regularly. During his time with Kiss, the constant traveling, high-intensity work, and the simmering conflicts within the group made the situation worse. Years later, Ace admitted to using stimulants almost every day in the late 70s and early 80s. One of the most serious accidents occurred when he was driving while intoxicated, causing a series of collisions. The incident forced him to undergo mandatory treatment and cancel several performance plans. During treatment, he shared about feeling disoriented, anxious, and unable to control himself. At that time, Ace suffered from chronic insomnia and overdosed on sleeping pills to maintain his work schedule. Ace's mental state was also unstable for a long time. He was often agitated, had difficulty concentrating, and showed obvious signs of depression. Some associates described him as having sudden mood swings, sometimes being very alert, but also being unable to remember how a meeting went. These manifestations gradually affected the way he worked and made many partners hesitate to cooperate long-term. This continued into the early 2000s when Ace began to slow down his schedule and withdraw from major projects. Although he left Kiss in 2002, Ace was still unstable in both his physical and mental health. He canceled many solo shows during this period and was largely absent from public events. Nevertheless, a major turning point came in 2006 when his daughter Monique directly asked him to stop all contact with people around him who regularly used drugs. After weeks of arguing, agreed to participate in a supervised detox program and later announced that he had completely given up alcohol. In a sharing, he said, "I destroyed almost everything I had, but I couldn't let it take my only daughter." Nevertheless, the consequences of many years of stimulant use still left a heavy mark on Ace's health. He had problems with his kidneys, nervous system, and joints. His personal doctors warned that his reflexes were slower than those of his age, and his short-term memory was showing signs of decline. This directly affected his ability to perform on stage, especially long and complex solos. In terms of his personal life, Ace lived a rather private life in the final stages of his life. He did not remarry, maintaining his closest relationship with his daughter and a few trusted associates. His new lifestyle helped him maintain his sanity, but also isolated him from much of the entertainment world. Although he was still active in music, he was no longer the central figure in conversations as before. The change in lifestyle did not erase the consequences of the past. Every time he stepped on stage, Ace had to do stretching exercises, take joint support medication, and concentrate to avoid mistakes. His performances were shortened, streamlined, and only played within a certain time frame. Performing a long tour became impossible with his physical condition at that time. Although he no longer faced public conflicts like before, Ace was still battling a long series of silent battles that he had to endure every day. But when his health was at its limit, continued to work as if everything was still intact. That period was also when he clearly showed his determination to complete one last music project before time was no longer on his side. The final stage of Ace's career began when he officially returned with the album Anomaly, released after a long absence. This was the first product that marked the period of working independently, controlling all production and mixing. After that, Ace continued to release Space Invader Origins, Volsbana 1 Origins, Volster 2, and 10,000 Volts. Each project had its own personal mark from the gameplay to the presentation. No longer dependent on a large team, Ace chose to make music on a moderate scale, focusing on quality and individual identity. The music in this period retained the traditional rock spirit, but was more carefully polished. Ace paid attention to every small detail in the harmony, guitar parts, and melody. The new songs were no longer aimed at a wide market, but focused on personal emotions and what he considered the right sound. He once shared during a recording session, "I don't chase charts. I just need the right sound I want to hear." The release of 10,000 Volts was considered one of his last strong efforts, but his declining health, Ace still persevered in participating in all recording sessions, editing and consulting on arrangements. Even though it was proposed to minimize the recording time, he didn't hire a different artist to play lead guitar. Ace wanted to make sure the record came out by the end of 2024, so they rushed through the whole thing. The tour itinerary during this time was also cut down a lot. Ace only went to big events or places he knew well. He turned down offers to perform for long periods of time and instead focused on short shows with the right technical circumstances. People who were there for the 10,000 Volts album tour said that Ace still checked his own gear before each show instead of just letting technicians take care of it. Ace not only published new products, but he also spent time re-editing old demos, some of which were never released recordings from the last decade. A lot of the recordings were taken off of personal hard drives and master tapes, then cleaned up and put back together. Some songs were put on the list of things to do for Origins Vol. 3, an album that will come out in 2025. He calls this project a summary of all he missed. Ace worked in his home studio virtually every day while getting ready for the upcoming record. He cut back on his travel, only went to a few media events, and spent all his time writing and honing the mix. Associates said he stuck to his schedule, which started early in the morning and ended in the afternoon. He didn't work at night so it wouldn't impair his sleep. The last thing on the schedule for 2025 is to go to the Kennedy Center Honors Celebration. Ace has consented to share the stage with the 3 remaining members of KISS for the first time in a long time, but he won't be performing. He was confirmed as a guest of honor and given a separate seat, so he didn't have to talk about the screenplay or the detailed program. The people in charge sent out official invites and plan to greet him again in August. There has never been a clear explanation for why Ace agreed to take part in this event. One of his team members stated that maybe he wanted to end the last chapter in his own way, at least by being there. Ace had to go to the hospital before the event, which meant that all plans had to be cancelled. The Origins Valor 3 project is not finished yet. A lot of recordings have been preserved, but the arrangement hasn't been worked on yet. There are some demos out there, but it's not obvious if they are good enough to be an official album. The current boss has not said anything particular. Ace's determination during this time comes not only from his job, but also from the strong foundation he built for himself when he was very young. He won't let himself quit until he's done because of the bad start and the rough past. Ace was born in the Bronx, New York, in 1951 to a working-class family with German and Dutch roots. His parents both knew how to play music and pushed their kids to learn how to play guitar when they were small. But Ace started playing electric guitar at 13, when he got one as a Christmas gift. He didn't have any official training. He learned to play music quickly by emulating sounds he heard on the radio and cassettes. He was inspired by musicians like Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, and Jimmy Page when he played. Ace had a quite different demeanor when he was a teenager. He didn't care about school, dropped out a few times, and hung out with a gang of pals who were bad. Some of his friends at the time reported that he would walk around the streets with his guitar on his shoulder, ready to play for anyone who would listen, even if it was just a few individuals. During this time, Ace's pals called him Ace because he was good at getting attention and making friends quickly. Before joining Kiss, Ace played in a lot of local bands, from hard rock to progressive music. Molimo was one of the most well-known ensembles. They were signed to RCA Records but never put out any recordings. He worked a lot of different jobs to stay alive, from delivering pizzas to driving a cab. He kept working on music, submitting recordings to record labels and trying out for a lot of new bands. Ace saw an ad in 1972 looking for people to join a new rock band. He sent in pictures and a sample tape, and then he was asked to audition. The audition was held in a small practice room in New York. Ace came in wearing red and yellow sneakers, which caught the attention of the whole band right away. He didn't need to look at the music when he started playing, and he played quite complicated solos with interesting sounds. He was chosen right after the audition, even though he didn't dress like anyone else in the room and didn't talk much. Ace not only played guitar in the band, but he also came up with the Kiss emblem, which has two stylized S's that look like a lightning bolt. He also made his own spaceman picture because he likes science fiction, especially UFOs and planets in space. This picture rapidly became an important component of Kiss's image and stayed that way for the rest of the band's career. Ace did what he believed in, played the manner he wanted to, and left with the music he made. The narrative of how a self-taught guitar lad from the Bronx became an irreplaceable rock legend is not simply one of triumph, it is also one of perseverance, falling down, getting back up, and leaving a lasting impact. If you liked this tale, please give the video a thumbs up. Tell folks who have heard an Ace riff about it and leave a comment below if you have any memories of his music. Sign up for the channel so you don't miss any of the following videos about real legends. Thanks for watching.